Hello there. So, over the past couple of days, I've seen a couple of interesting moments with DC's homeless community. But before I tell you about them, let me give you a little bit of historical context for what I'm about to say. A few years back, I had a couple of interesting moments where, in one instance, I was in Washington, D.C.'s Martin Luther King Jr. library, and there was a homeless, mentally ill guy named Bill who was waiting for an express computer where you can get on for 15 minutes. And as he stood in line and waited, he began to jump up and down, turn around in circles, and looked kind of crazy. So I called the mental health outreach service to come and talk to him, because he was making people wonder and worry and so forth. But I then went and spoke to somebody who used to work in the library, which is actually closed for a 3-year renovation now. Closed in early 2017, it reopened in 2020. And I told her about the incident, and then she said, in a rather sarcastic tone of voice, "Oh, so you do understand how other people feel, not just the homeless." And I had never ever made it sound as though I thought that homeless people were all that mattered, or that they can't ever do any kind of wrong, or that only their feelings are relevant. I've never said anything to that effect. But if I don't say anything negative about the homeless, or if I don't say in no uncertain terms that the house person is right and the homeless person is wrong, or the house person's feelings matter and the homeless person's feelings don't, then people build in these assumptions, things that I never said, never even strongly implied. There was another moment where I went to a meeting with a bunch of DC government people and nonprofit folk who work on the homeless issue, and I don't remember what exactly I was talking about at the moment, but I mentioned something that a homeless person had done that was wrong for them to do. And this guy who was working in DC government at the time, he sarcastically said, "Oh, so you do think homeless people can do wrong?" And once again, I've never said that they couldn't. My thinking has always been that you need to create an environment that's conducive to people doing right before you can expect them to do right. So if a person is dealing with circumstances that are insurmountable, and they don't do right because of the circumstances of their life, then I can't really go after them. I can't tell them get a job if I realize that they have more challenges than they can be expected to surmount when it comes to getting a job. And there are other types of challenges where the person may find them to be insurmountable, and I can't just keep on getting on them about not doing right if I realize that even with the best of intentions, they, for one reason or another, just can't do right. So, that said, I have never believed homeless people to be any more perfect than the average person, than a housed person. And I have never felt as though the feelings of the homeless are somehow more important than the feelings of housed people. So people need not imply that sort of stuff, because that's not where I'm coming from at all. I'm coming from a place of, hey, let's create an environment that's conducive to the homeless being able to do right. Then and only then will I get on the homeless themselves. But that said, a couple days ago, I was walking down E Street in downtown Washington, D.C., that is E Street Northwest, and I saw an ambulance, and I figured it was another K2 situation, K2 Spice Bizarro, Zorro, whatever you like to call that, synthetic marijuana, and that is what it turned out to be. As I walked by, I saw a crowd of people, some of them homeless, others I'm not sure if they were homeless, but they had been hanging out right outside of DC's 441 4th Street Northwest building. It's an office building owned by DC government. It's where the office of the Attorney General is, and here they are hanging out in front of the office of DC's top cop and using drugs, but go figure. Anyway, as this guy gets put into the ambulance, I hear people saying to him, hey, we got you when you get back, man. And you can read that a number of different ways, but I took it as them saying, hey, you know, we got more drugs for you when you get out of the hospital because of using drugs. Okay. Now, I can't say with absolute certainty that's what they meant, but that's how it came off to me. You know, we got you, man, when you get out. You know, we got some more drugs for you when you get out from this hospital visit because of using drugs. And then this morning, I just happened to be walking near a large DC shelter, and I saw an ambulance about a half block out of my way, and I couldn't see paramedics or the person that they were helping. And the way things were positioned, I was looking at the back of the ambulance. So I decided to walk down and see what was happening. Turns out there was a guy lying on the sidewalk in front of the ambulance with his head actually hanging off the sidewalk over the curb. And the paramedics put a blood pressure cuff on him, and I saw that he wasn't moving. Doesn't necessarily mean that he was dead, but they were checking for even the hint of a pulse. I guess that's why they had the blood pressure cuff on him. But it didn't look good. I don't know if the person was actually deceased. All I know is that he wasn't moving and that they were checking for even a hint of a pulse by putting the blood pressure cuff on him. That's all I can say. But anyway, for those of you who really want to hear me say that a homeless person can do wrong, those of you who incorrectly have assumed that I think homeless people can't do wrong, those of you who have incorrectly assumed that I think that what a homeless person thinks and feels is more important than what a house person thinks or feels, get ready for this. I do believe that homeless people can do wrong, and that they oftentimes do. And I also believe that while certain things that are right for them to do are also impossible for them to do until the environment is conducive to them doing it, there are other things where they don't need for someone to create an environment that's conducive to them doing right in order to do right. There are some matters, such as drug use, that don't necessarily require that you get somebody's help. I mean, you should have enough sense to know that, hey, if this particular drug or this particular batch of this particular drug is killing people, then I, as somebody who doesn't want to die, am not going to use that stuff. There are probably some people out there who would say, Eric, you picked the wrong issue for talking about the homeless doing wrong. Some people would say, oh, it's so hard to get off drugs. I don't talk about this part of my life much, but there was a time many years ago when I was a user, and I quit cold turkey. I didn't go to a drug program. Somebody told me some years ago that she feels like I'm a horrible example for helping people to get off drugs because of the fact that I quit cold turkey. Because that represents an exceptional ability, not the rule. So I'm throwing that out there and admitting that I realize some people will take offense to what I'm saying right now. Some people will say, well, you know, it is true that the homeless can do wrong like anybody else, but that's not the issue you should have used to make that point. Okay, so I've already said it for you. But nonetheless, what I said stands, and I think it is totally idiotic to, after hearing that something is killing people, run out there and say, hey, give me some of that killer stuff. Unless, of course, you want to die. But that's another video as to why people would want to die. And I've actually been thinking about doing such a video. But I will in the near future, I promise. Probably later today. Anyway, those are my 2 cents for the day, or for the moment anyway.